Washington is not only too big and spends too much, but it does too much.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons, maybe it's because I was a governor, but I'm going to tell you what, if I'm your president, we're going to shut down the Federal Department of Education. We're going to send those resources back to the states.
Oh, he jumped a question. He's got it.
And we're going to revive federalism in America because America's governors, Republican governors, are proving every day that you can deliver prosperity and security and opportunity for your people. We got to have a season where we're returning to the states and to the American people what our founders intended under the 10th Amendment to the Constitution.
Yep, exactly. So while we're talking about education, you were a vocal opponent of the Linn-Mar schools policies that allowed kids to change their gender, their pronouns, their names without parents knowing. Iowa, this legislative session, we banned that. We made it clear. Can you believe we had to put into code that parents will be the primary decision makers of their children's education? But that's where we're at today. Did you ever think that we would get to this point where we would actually have to put something like that into law? And how do you address that as the President of the United States?
Well, first, Governor, I just want to thank you for your bold leadership and the leadership of your Lieutenant Governor, who I know is with us today, and also members of your state legislature who stepped forward.
Yep.
Look, when I first heard about the Linn-Mar community schools here in Iowa, it took my breath away. We heard from parents. I set up a foundation in Washington, and they said, we'd like your help with this federal lawsuit because at Linn-Mar community schools, you'd have to have a note from your parents to get a Tylenol from the school nurse, but you could get a gender transition plan without ever telling your mom and dad or getting their permission. I mean, that radical gender ideology that's taken hold in that school is taken hold in schools all across the country. And it's one of the reasons we weighed in heavily on that lawsuit. I'm confident our conservative majority on the Supreme Court, if they take up the case, is going to get it right. We have got to make it clear that parents don't co-parent with government. Parents are in charge of their children's education. And we got to protect our kids from this radical gender ideology. It's another reason why I've been very clear. I mean, as President of the United States, I'm proud of the fact of what Iowa's done, what Indiana has done to protect our kids from chemical and surgical gender transition treatment. But I'll tell you what, as President of the United States, we're going to protect America's children from gender transition, chemical or surgical. We got to protect our kids in this country, and we will.
It should not be an experiment.
I promise you.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So what's something we may not know about your childhood or your young adulthood that has shaped who you are today? A little bit back to that first question, but.
Well, I mean, you may not know that I'm the grandson of an Irish immigrant. My grandfather's name was Richard Michael Cawley. He stepped off onto Ellis Island from a boat in Ireland in 1923. And that's how Richard Michael Cawley came here, and that's how Michael Richard Pence got to be Vice President of the United States. I mean, my family really lived the American dream. It's one of the things that drives Karen and I. You know, we were raised to believe to whom much is given, much will be required. In many ways, I grew up at the footstool of the American dream. My grandfather, that Irish immigrant, is one of the best men I ever knew. He came to America, drove a bus for 40 years in Chicago. It's one of the reasons I'm a Cub fan. My folks grew up on the South Side. My dad was a Sox fan, admittedly. But they followed work down to southern Indiana and build everything that matters. You know, a family, a business, and a good name. I grew up in a small business family, and my dad was a combat veteran in the Korean War. I wrote a book about my life not long ago, and the publisher told me when I turned it in, they said, you know, my dad's been gone more than 30 years, but they said, you know, we think your dad is the secret star of this book. And it blessed my heart. My dad was the best man I ever knew. He loved this country, he raised us to believe in giving back. And so if you want to understand Mike Pence, you need to know Karen, and frankly, you need to know this incredible family I've been blessed to live in. We live the American dream, and I'm running to make sure that the American dream is alive and well for future generations of Americans here in Iowa and across the country.
We talked a little bit about the weakness on the world stage, and we see it every single day with an absent president and administration, and especially with the aggression with China. So can you just talk a little bit more, Vice President, about how that's impacted and continues to impact our national security? And again, just, what do we need to do, turn that around? And what we're seeing at the southern border, as you talked about, is a big piece of that.
Look, President Joe Biden has weakened this country at home and abroad. And that disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan has emboldened the enemies of freedom around the world. As your vice president, I had the privilege to travel around the world. I've met many of these leaders. I've been to many of these countries. And I know in my heart of hearts the reason why Russia never even tried to redraw international lines by force under our administration, the only time in the 21st century, is because they saw the way we were building up our military. They saw the way that we unleashed our armed forces to take down ISIS. They saw the way we sent those cruise missiles into Syria when they used chemical weapons on innocent civilians. And they saw us take down the most dangerous terrorist in the world, Qasem Soleimani. It was a credible threat of the use of force and a strong military in the United States. It kept the world a whole lot more quiet in our 4 years than it is right now. But the truth is, I really do believe that withdrawal from Afghanistan under President Biden never would have happened if we'd still been in office. But it was a disgrace. But I want to say to anybody here who wore the uniform of the United States, especially those that served in Afghanistan, nothing of that disastrous withdrawal will ever diminish the honor and gratitude that is owed to men and women that served in Afghanistan over the last 20 years defending our country. But I have to tell you that it gets a little personal with us about what happened in Afghanistan. Karen and we're Marine Corps parents. That's what we're awful proud of, our boy and his wife and their girls. So when Humberto Sanchez, one of the 13 that fell at the Kabul airport, came home, along with 12 other American heroes, we drove up to Logansport, Indiana to go and just be with their family, to pray with them, encourage them. And I have to tell you, those of you that worry about the future of this country, you need to hear Humberto's story. Humberto actually didn't get to walk across the stage, his mom told me, at Logansport High School because he had a little bit of trouble in high school. He had to finish in summer school. But a little bit after he finished high school, he apparently found his mom, and he said, "Look, I want to make you proud. I'm going to go be a Marine." And by all accounts, Humberto became a Marine's Marine, deeply respected by all his fellow Marines. And he came to that day where he was manning one of those gates at the Kabul airport, Governor. And the word came out that somebody had gotten past the outside wire, somebody that looked dangerous. And the word went down through the radios that everybody was to pull back, get inside the wall. And Humberto refused. His mom and his fellow Marines said that Humberto said, "Most of the people in the line at my gate are women and children, and I got to get them through. I got to get as many through as I can." And by all accounts, he took the brunt of the blast. His mother looked at me with tears in her eyes as Karen and I gathered with her and said, his last act on earth was a work of heart. So despite the weakness of this administration that's emboldened the enemies of freedom, I'm going to tell you what, Humberto Sanchez is America. This is a great nation, and we will stand in the gap, and we will bring this country back with his inspiration in our hearts.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So we're about to wrap up here, but before we kind of close out, we've got the Fast Three. At least it's not the
Fast Three.
The Fast Three. So give me one funny campaign moment on the campaign trail.
Just one?
I know, exactly. Anybody that's been out there, and there's multiple, right?
Well, I would say how many times people tell me that your husband looks like me.
That's what I was going to say, too. So
Yeah.
Kevin was at an event that the vice president was at, and they came up and asked him for his autograph. And he goes, "Well, you want my autograph? Why?" And he goes, they said, "Well, the vice president says, I'm Kevin Reynolds, so
Yeah.
we can stump for you anytime you need somebody to stump
And
for
let
you."
me just say with confidence, he's a very handsome man.
I agree. Okay, so you've been on the fairgrounds a couple days now. Favorite
it.
fair food that you've had or looking forward to having?
Haven't had a Apparently, I have now had a lemon shake-up.
There we go. There we go.
I'm a lemon shake-up guy at the state fair, and can't leave without a corn dog.
Okay, awesome.
Although I think we're headed to the pork tent to go to work.
There you go.
In just a few minutes. But the Iowa Fair is many things. It's agriculture. It's fun. But for me, the Iowa State Fair is food.
It is food. I agree.
We're going to enjoy it, just like the rest of you.
Another thing, and you'll walk it off, so I'm quite confident that. Okay, last
Not
one.
all of it.
Your favorite walkout song?
Well, you know.
I know. This is the hard one.
Yeah, no, I got an awful lot on my iPhone. But when I first ran for governor, there was a song that we always walked out to, and it's These Are My People by Rodney Atkins. It's where I come from.
Yeah.
And
big fan over
thank
here.
you. We got one more Rodney Atkins fan here.
Everybody's on their phone.
I think one of the reasons that Karen and I feel so at home, we had a great day yesterday at the fair, and I want to thank you all for taking a minute to hear us out this morning, is Iowa just feels like home. I mean, I grew up in a small town, had a cornfield in the backyard. The 4-H fair was the biggest thing in the summer. The state fair was the biggest thing in the state, and I have to tell you, I just promise you give me the privilege to be your president. I'm going to fight for the values and the ideals and the integrity and the character of the people of Iowa and the heartland of this country. So help me God.
Thank you. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to even build on that if you want.
Yeah.
So as I travel the state, people tell me they're looking for a leader. They want somebody to stand up for the American people, for the country or freedoms. Somebody's got conviction to do the right thing, the resolve to follow through. But they're talking about that they want somebody to win. So tell all of us that are gathered here why you are that person. And you've done a good job of saying that, but anything that you want to add.
Well, I'm running for president because I think this country's in a lot of trouble. I mean, to be honest with you, after we left the White House, our life's been pretty good. We moved home to Indiana. We bought 5 acres and a pond. I bought a John Deere riding mower.
Life is good.
54-inch deck, 0-turn radius. Got a red pickup truck. Got 3 granddaughters. But when I saw the devastation that Joe Biden and the Democrats have wrought on this nation, at home and abroad, we just couldn't sit this one out. I said it before, I'll say it again. It's one of the lodestars of our life. To whom much is given, much will be required. And I believe the opportunity that we had to serve in the Congress for 12 years, I was a House conservative leader before it was cool. I fought against the big spenders in the Republican Party for much of that time. I was governor of a state like your great governor. We showed you can cut taxes and balance budgets and support the sanctity of life and expand educational opportunities. And thank you for Iowa leading the way on expanding parental educational choice to families. And then having had the privilege to be your vice president in 4 extraordinary years that we made America more prosperous and more secure than ever before. You know, I was always loyal to President Donald Trump until the day came that my oath to the Constitution required me to do otherwise. But I'll always be proud of the record of the Trump-Pence administration. And I'll always believe that we charted a course for restoring American security and prosperity. I'm running because I think this is no time for on-the-job training. The challenges America is facing in the world are profound, and we need leadership that can appeal to the better angels of our nature, leadership that can at least have the possibility of bringing the American people together, to strengthen our nation, to revive our economy, to defend our values. And my hope is, as we travel to all 99 counties,
Alrighty.
as we make an effort to be at every Pizza Ranch, every Casey's, my hope is that we'll have the opportunity to earn your support. And I promise you, you give me the opportunity to be the Republican nominee, we're going to defeat Joe Biden in 2024, and we're going to bring this country all the way back on a foundation of conservative values.
Yes. Please give a loud round of applause for Vice President Mike Pence.
Thank you
so much.